Number 10. Shanna Buono. In January 2018, tragedy struck a woman named Shanna Buono in the most horrific way possible. Her boyfriend Clark was a pilot. He and his two friends were in the cockpit of a plane while he was showing them the instruments and giving them a little bit of a tour. While that was happening, Shanna was waiting for them on the tarmac below. But the aircraft was on, the engines were running, the propellers spinning, and Shanna was standing way too close. That's when she got the worst idea of her life. Shanna approached the plane to take a picture of herself but wound up touching the spinning propeller. She was just trying to take a selfie, but she said it was dark. Shanna couldn't see exactly where she was. She had her phone out, was excited for the picture, and suddenly was being ripped to shreds. She was struck by the propeller, which tore one of her arms completely off her body and ripped half of the other off entirely. It happened instantly, leaving no time for her to react, and because of the way the propeller hit her, there wasn't anything doctors could do to fix her up. She survived, which was a miracle in itself, but she lost the use of both her arms. Now she uses homemade prosthetics to feed herself and do makeup. Despite everything, Shanna hasn't slowed down at all. She's still independent, and the last we heard, she was training for a triathlon. Number 9. Madison Bradley. Madison Bradley was going through what could have been one of the best days of her life when suddenly it was over. According to the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, Madison was killed during a tragic boating accident on Monday, July 4th, 2022. She was there for the 4th of July on the Blind River in Livingston Parish when she accidentally fell overboard and hit the propeller. Madison was only 17 years old and had her whole life in front of her. Mike Bradley, Madison's father, said that the world lost someone special that day. But it wasn't completely Madison's fault. She was only a passenger on a pontoon boat with 5 other people aboard it. It was about 5:30 p.m. and the boat party was just getting started. But the driver, 33-year-old David Crow, was wasted. Driving a boat under the influence is just as illegal as drunk driving in a car. David's impairment caused him to jostle the boat, which knocked Madison and another passenger into the water. Madison hit the propeller, which ended her life. The other person who was knocked off safely resurfaced. After the horrifying accident, David was charged with vehicular homicide. He could be spending a significant amount of his life, upwards of 30 years, in a Louisiana jail if found guilty. Number 8. Natalia and her flip-flops. Natalia Andrea Larranaga Fajardo was on vacation in Colombia in November of 2022 when a pair of flip-flops killed her. The 26-year-old California woman was shredded by the propeller of a boat after she dropped her flip-flops in the Caribbean Sea and jumped in to get them. Officials claim Natalia suffered intense bleeding from injuries to her legs, buttocks, and lower back. She jumped in the exact wrong place, so the propellers ripped her apart from the waist down. There's even footage of the gruesome incident, which shows nearby boaters screaming in shock as the deep blue sea quickly turned crimson with blood. To make things even more tragic, Natalia didn't die right away. She was whisked to the hospital and given multiple blood transfusions. She spent that time fighting for her life, but died from cardiac arrest before the doctors could save her. There was nobody to blame for what happened. It was just a stroke of bad luck. It wasn't the boat driver's fault or Natalia's. There were 23 other tourists on board and 2 crew members. There was no way Natalia could have known she was jumping to her death. Number 7. Sani Aliyu. Sani Aliyu was a college student in Georgia who experienced a fatal accident after a date in 2022 went horribly wrong. The 21-year-old student had taken a girl out on their first date. Being a hopeless romantic, Sani planned something amazing. He took his crush out to dinner in an airplane. The dinner went well. Everything was going great. And then they took the airplane back and landed at Georgia's Statesboro Bullock County Airport. It was dark, a little after 10:35 p.m. After the plane got to the ramp, Sani's date got out and walked to the back of the plane to wait. Next, Sani got out of the small single-engine Cessna 172 and walked straight into the propeller. Instead of walking away, he walked toward the front of the airplane and the propeller hit him in the head. He was pronounced dead at the scene when paramedics got there. His cause of death was cerebral lacerations. What this means is that the propeller broke through the bone to Sani's brain, killing him pretty much instantly, and right in front of his date, too. At least Sani didn't feel any pain. It was a horrible accident, but at least the college student didn't suffer. Number 6. Jack Fenton. A 22-year-old student was killed by a helicopter while on a summer trip in Greece during 2022. The British national named Jack Fenton died near Athens after what must have been a breathtaking helicopter ride. Jack chartered a flight from the island of Mykonos to Sparta, ancient homeland of the Spartan warriors. According to what senior police officials told The Times, Jack was the first to leave the Bell 407 helicopter. But as he moved to the back, he was hit in the head by the small rear rotor. The rotor blade hit him hard enough that he probably never even realized it. Jack was traveling with some family members. The Oxford Brookes student was with his parents, sister, and a handful of other British tourists. It's hard to imagine the despair his parents must have felt when the helicopter's pilot radioed the other helicopter, the one Jack's parents were on, to tell them the news. The second pilot then diverted from his original course and landed at the Athens International Airport. This was to prevent the man's parents from seeing where Jack was laying dead. Greek media reported that the pilot would be investigated to see if he had any hand in Jack's death. If he let the passenger off the helicopter before the blade stopped spinning, he could be in big trouble for negligence. Greece doesn't mess around when it comes to punishing bad captains, meaning the pilot could see some serious consequences. Number 5. The deadly Antonov AN-24. In the summer of 2022, a Russian airport worker lost their life to a propeller when they walked straight into the blades. The unfortunate incident unfolded in Russia's Khanty-Mansi Autonomous Okrug region. The ground service agent was working near an Antonov AN-24 aircraft belonging to UTair at the Beloyarsk airport. UTair is one of the top carriers in the country, and the plane was getting ready for a flight to Brezovo. While the aircraft technician was clearing the thrust pads, they accidentally made contact with the blades of a rotating propeller. The individual was only identified as a 48-year-old male. Russian media outlets weren't able to release his name. Shortly afterwards, the video of the incident popped up online. It's absolutely disturbing, and I would never recommend anyone watch it. But based on the footage, it looks like the technician didn't see where he was going. He walked straight into the moving propeller as if he didn't see it directly in front of him. Number 4. Hunter Prevost. On a Saturday night in July, Hunter Prevost was boating on Lake Pontchartrain in Louisiana. According to authorities, the driver was under the influence of alcohol and may also have taken some drugs, though it was never officially confirmed. Hunter was only 21 years old, a local from Loranger. The individual driving the boat was a friend of his named Lane Keenan. The pair didn't seem to be fishing, just drinking and joyriding. The night took an ugly turn when Hunter fell off the 25-foot boat and hit the back propeller. He died in the process. The Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries said his body wasn't pulled out of the lake until around 7 p.m. After he was hit, his body sank and his watery corpse had to be fished out. This was yet another tragic incident of messing around on a boat. Unfortunately for Lane Keenan, he was arrested for driving a vessel while impaired, reckless operation of a vessel, and vehicular homicide. He could now go to jail for accidentally murdering his friend just because he got drunk and thoughtlessly drove a boat around. Number 3. Ground crew gone wrong. A ground crew member at an airport in Alabama died at the start of 2023 when they were sucked into the engine of a plane. The National Transportation Safety Board made a statement saying that the ground crew member was ingested. The employee, who wasn't initially named, was working at Montgomery Regional Airport when the accident happened on a Saturday at around 3 p.m. Getting hit by a propeller is one thing, but being sucked into the actual engine is somehow 10 times more terrifying. From what little we know about the recent incident, it was simply a freak accident. The aircraft was at the gate, its parking brake was engaged, and most safety measures were apparently being followed. According to what federal investigators revealed during the subsequent investigation, the worker had been warned multiple times to stay away from the airplane. The entire crew had done a safety huddle right before, being specifically instructed on how to avoid being sucked into an engine. But it was New Year's Eve. The workers were undoubtedly excited to be finished with their shift, and the victim made a simple but deadly mistake. Even though they were told 10 minutes earlier how to behave near the plane, the crew member still died. Why were the engines still on, and why were there people walking around the plane? It's because the airplane had to be left running for a cool down of 2 minutes. The auxiliary power unit wasn't working, so the engines had to stay on briefly. Still, the worker got too close, was sucked inside the engine, and never made it out alive. And although the victim was never officially identified by any reports, news outlets have recently said that it was a woman named Courtney Edwards. Number 2. Felicia Denham. In August 2022, a woman in Nelson County, Kentucky, walked into an airplane propeller and was killed. 37-year-old Felicia Denham was on a small plane traveling from Elizabethtown to Bardstown. Her brother-in-law was the pilot, and Felicia was joined by her young daughter. When the plane landed, Felicia thought it would be nice to give her daughter a better view of how to pilot an aircraft. Her idea was to walk to the front of the plane and lift her daughter up so she could see through the window of the cockpit. But unbeknownst to Felicia, the propeller was still spinning. Felicia walked right into the spinning propeller and died instantly. Not a single thought went through her head. 1 second she was walking forward confidently, then a fragment of an instant later, she was gone. In case you're wondering, Felicia's daughter survived without any physical injuries. But considering how she watched her mother die at the hands of a plane propeller right in front of her, chances are she will carry that trauma for the rest of her life. But perhaps the most shocking thing of all this is that according to the National Transportation Safety Board, this kind of thing happens all the time. They record about 3 propeller deaths each year when somebody walks into the spinning propeller of a small plane. Number 1. Tahana Smith. A boating accident went down at Lake Pleasant, Arizona in May 2022. A woman died after she had her leg cut clean off by a boat propeller. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office identified the victim as 32-year-old Tahana Smith. She jumped into the water and was immediately hit by the propeller. Firefighters first believed the incident happened during water skiing, but that wasn't actually the case. The victim simply jumped into the water on the wrong side of the boat, her foot landed near the spinning propeller, and that was it. The metal blade caught her leg, ripped most of it off, and then she started bleeding out into the murky water. Smith didn't die right away, though. She was quickly flown to a nearby hospital where she died not long after. In this case, there was no evidence of anybody being impaired or any foul play. It goes to show that even without alcohol involved, boating can be extraordinarily dangerous. Without following proper safety procedures, a simple swim at the lake can turn into a nightmare, which is exactly what happened to Tahana Smith. Would you rather get hit by a plane propeller or a boat propeller? Which do you think would offer the better chance of survival? Let us know in the comments down below, and thanks for watching. Remember to hit subscribe if you haven't yet, and come back for more awesome videos.